Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are merging the streams this week. It is bye week. I'm getting a little bit of oxygen, putting everything together for the new world that we have. Dennis Koulatsos has his own place at Baltimore Positive for pieces like this. And, of course, each and every Thursday from 3 until 5, hosting the former Sunday Sports Voice, now the Dennis Koulatsos Show. And, I think when we dreamed up what would be a perfect 2020. Certainly, plagues and wearing masks and social distance. None of this stuff would be on the list of things. But 5-1 for the Ravens at the bye and awaiting the Pittsburgh Steelers. From a football perspective, I know everything wasn't perfect on Sunday, and we'll get into that. But from where they sit right now, I'm okay with 5-1 at the bye.
Yeah, you have to like where they are now. They don't get style points for winning. I know the fan base isn't really happy with the way the team has played. I don't know that this team is the worst 5-1 team in league history. I wouldn't say that, but there's certainly room for improvement on both sides of the ball. They had to withstand a furious fourth quarter rally by the Eagles. When you're leading 24-6, Nestor, you're expected to put that game away against a poor team, a team that just hasn't found its way this year, such as the Eagles. The offensive line, to me, it's still the biggest question mark. But as you mentioned, the bye is coming at a great time for them to regroup, get things together, and piece it together before they face a very formidable opponent in the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are just firing in all cylinders right now.
I told Luke I was sort of packing my stuff up in the fourth quarter. My wife had some special Chinese food she wanted me to grab and bring home from Philadelphia, this place that came recommended. So she's going to order. I was going to curbside. And I'm like, I'm going to Zoom the press conference on the way home the way I did the Redskin game, because this is going to be a walk in the park, no problem, whatever. My God, the last 5 minutes of the game, I didn't pack anything, but I was like, putting the water in the bag and sort of figuring out, where everything was and getting myself all organized to do post game and, be into it and have a question for the coach if I had one. I mean, the last 15 minutes of the game, it's something that this generation of the Ravens, you and I have been fans forever. We've seen comebacks. We've seen them blow games. We've seen a Super Bowl slip between our fingers up in New England, right? We've seen all of that, but this generation, that kind of comeback, maybe it's a little bit of medicine for them at this point to go away on the bye that will shake them up a little bit, because eventually you take the foot off the gas in this league against the number 1 overall pick who looked overwhelmed in the first quarter, right? Like literally looked out of his league, looked like he had no protection at all. To lead that kind of comeback, 2 points for Carson Wentz for me.
Yeah, Nestor, you and I have seen many games. We know it's a 60-minute game. It's not cliche, but unless the last second comes off the clock, you haven't won anything. My concern, I was concerned in the middle of the second quarter. Ravens were up 17-0, had a third down play at the Eagles' 30-yard line. Lamar Jackson takes a sack, takes the team out of field goal range. If they gain no yardage on that play, Justin Tucker comes in, hits a 47-yard field goal. You're up 20-0. But I thought right then and there, if there was a turning point in the game where the Ravens could have iced it, that was it. And they have to learn from that. They have to get better. And look, it's never over until it's over. You have to maximize your opportunities. You can't leave points on the table in this league, because it is a 60-minute game. And especially with the way the referees are calling things these days, some of the ticky-tacky calls, you've got to take that out of their hands, and you can't leave it to chance. So hopefully it was a learning experience, particularly for some of the young players on defense.
I'm not sure the television caught the act of Marcus Peters in the last 5 minutes of the game, but it was something. And, I've sort of mildly compared it to the Detroit debacle a couple of years, 15 years ago, whenever it was. That feels a couple of years ago, that the animation of Marcus Peters in the last 5 minutes, when things were melting down, there was more melting down going down that was melting down. In the end, Judon, LJ Fort, they saved the day. And but boy, that really could have taken a turn. And they could have come home with their feelings really hurt. And the season damaged a little bit, especially in the division they're in right now. And with Pittsburgh coming up, it's a nice little life lesson. And certainly, and I've talked to Luke about this, there's going to be some coaching going on the next 2 weeks based on the way they've performed to get to 5-1, that no one in the building is quite satisfied with how they've played.
Yeah, you had to dislike all the penalty calls, particularly on the offensive line. Marcus Peters has been average this year. He hasn't played at All-Pro or even a Pro Bowl level. He and Anthony Everett have both struggled in coverage, with a sharp contrast with Jimmy Smith and Marlon Humphrey, who have played lights out. But you're right, the pouting, the body language is very, very poor, and which leaves the coaching staff on both sides of the ball lots of opportunities to get these players better, to get their minds right, and to get them all on the same page. But you're right, that was an epic comeback by the Eagles, and thankfully it was thwarted by the Ravens. And I also thought that the Eagles were outcoached a bit. I thought that their coach Peterson made a mistake by going for two too early in the game. I think a lot of coaches get cute, and instead of just taking the short points, they go for the 2-point conversion, which to me doesn't make any sense.
Dennis Koulatsos is here. He's here each and every Thursday from 3 until 5 doing the Dennis Koulatsos Show. Heard again on Sunday mornings with a tip of the cap to Bruce Posner for coming out of the bullpen and playing the RG3 role last week for Den as we get into bye week here and the Steelers and moving the schedule around and everything that's happened in the league. Steelers look better than advertised, right? Like this Titans game, we're all going to sit around this week and we'll have an opportunity, and they had their bye taken away. But I have every reason to believe they'll win again this week, right? So what we're seeing from the Steelers is we talked all about ourselves this offseason. We talked all about the Browns all last offseason. And lo and behold, a week from right now, you and I are going to be talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers in some sort of must-win scenario for the Ravens 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, you certainly were rooting for as a Ravens fan, rooting for the Browns in their matchup against the Steelers. But the Browns once again played the role of little brother to the big brother. They got spanked by the Steelers, and the Steelers didn't play all that well offensively. Now, their defense, they were lights out, but you have to like what they're doing on both sides of the ball. The defensive line and their offensive line are lights out. The Ravens, in contrast, they've got to get the center position and a right guard position solidified. It's been glaring to Ravens Nation how much this team misses a future Hall of Famer in Marshall Yanda, right? So that's where the game was won on both sides of the trenches. And the Titans and the Steelers are both formidable. As a football fan, you have to look forward to this matchup.
Den, for you with the offense and the problems and running the ball, and not that there are any problems when you're winning 20-0 at halftime if you are running the ball. Lamar, Marshall Yanda, Lamar throwing the ball. I've never seen him throw the ball worse than he threw the ball on Sunday. That was the tweet, and I'm going to stick with that. He did not throw the ball well.
Yeah, he seemed like he has regressed, but again, I don't know if he's bailing out too early. He doesn't have confidence in that offensive line. I also think it's a condition that the league has caught up to this offense, right? They've seen enough of it. They have enough on tape. They're doing things from a defensive standpoint to slow down this Ravens offense, but it gets down to line play and execution. I think they need to indoctrinate some of these younger players. Devin Duvernay certainly looks very explosive at the position of wide receiver, and I'd like to see James Prochet also get some looks on that offense, but they have an opportunity to get better, but I think it's a condition of the league adapting to this offense. But again, let's not make no mistake about it. They're still averaging 30 points a game, Nestor, and the defense was letting up 15.2 points a game prior to the Eagles debacle, and now they're giving up 17.3 points a game. But still, you're talking about a 13-point differential. This is still a very good team. It's just not the historic team that we saw a year ago, and maybe that's why we have some concern. In addition to Lamar's mechanics, that sidearm throw seems to be ineffective at times, and but you have to like his explosion. I mean, his runs up the middle have been very, very dynamic.
The passing is one thing, but the running game was sort of the bread and butter of where they are. The missing tight end. There's a lot going on here. Mark Ingram sort of pulls up gimpy a little bit. This isn't a bad time to take a break, to do some self-scouting, to figure out what they're doing to Lamar, and also to get Lamar completely healthy, right? Like we talk so much about what happens when Lamar is banged up. Well, they're still winning football games, to your point. They're still scoring enough points. Even when Lamar runs twice, as he did last week, they can still win football games in other ways. There was a question about that, and even when they're not playing well, to be at 5-1, I don't feel bad about complaining about things and talking about penalties, pre-snap penalties, all of these issues. But I will say it's hard to win week after week in the league. It's hard to hold on. It's hard to hold your water down on the 2-yard line when everything has conspired against you for 20 minutes and your quarterback's out on the field pouting. You're playing with 10 guys. That Judon and LJ Fort, couple veteran guys, could make a play like that. That's going to make them feel good about themselves the next couple weeks.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, Nestor. And of course, as fans, we'd like to see the matchups that we have coming up. Some very intriguing games. How does this offense look against formidable defenses such as the Steelers, the Colts, and the Titans, right? So that's going to be the intriguing part for me as a fan, is to see how do they match up against these better defenses in the league. What kind of wrinkles will Greg Roman throw at these defenses? And you have to like our defense. Again, they had a second half lapse, but for the most part, they've been playing very, very well. You have to love Calais Campbell and the push he's put up the middle. And also, let's not discount the fact that Brandon Williams and Derek Wolfe also missed the game with a COVID concern. So let's get these guys back into the lineup, get everybody healthy. And I think that I'm hoping that they'll be able to catch the Pittsburgh Steelers at the right time.
It's funny, if you would have said it before the game, there's going to be a close game, 2 points at the 2-yard line, and I would have thought there would have been fans and screaming. And I miss the fans a ton in Philadelphia, more than in D.C., more than in Houston. I missed them in Houston and smell of that barbecue in that parking lot. But there was something about being in Philadelphia with no fans that was weird. But if you would have told me all of that, and I would have said, did Brandon Williams play? And you would have said, no, COVID Saturday. I've been like, oh, well, no wonder they struggled. That was kind of the weird part, right? Like how much they pushed Carson Wentz around, intimidated him. That offensive line looked like an accordion, early on. It was the mess. And then at the end, he showed such incredible grittiness, right? Like he showed a side in him that made me realize why he's a 1-1.
Yeah, there's not about it. I also thought the fact that they played Jalen Hurts later on in the game hurt the Eagles. Had he played earlier on, maybe they would have opened up the offense a little bit more and given the Ravens more of a challenge. But that's the league, 60-minute games. You can never take your foot off the neck of the other team. You've got to put them away when you can. The other thing I like about this team, Nestor, is that they still have room to grow, whereas last year I thought they had peaked maybe too early. Those 12 regular season wins, I think, actually hurt them as they head into the playoffs. Let this team get better as this year progresses. Let them build, because as we all know, not the best team usually wins the Super Bowl, but the team that's hot at the right time. Let's get into the dance. Let's get into the playoffs, and let's peak at the right time this year.
We talked a lot about talent and the organization, and we had Dick Cass on, and we had Kevin Byrne on, and everyone who knows something about the league understands the Ravens run an impeccable kind of ship. They run a better organization than a lot of the other organizations, and that they would benefit from this. Now that we're getting up on this turn, and we've had COVID run around Tennessee, we've had problems in different places, but certainly the on-the-field problems of places like the Jets, where it's just a mess for organizations halfway through, not just the mess of being a bad football team, but the mess of COVID, the mess of all of this, finishing out the season in this, you're no good, all of that. That's starting to surface around the league too.
Yeah, you can just see that the cream rises, and bad organizations stay bad and great organizations stay great. You look at the Jets, you mentioned, they trade away, they cut actually Le'Veon Bell, and he goes to the Kansas City Chiefs, which is really bad news, not only for the Ravens, but the rest of the AFC. The guy is a generational talent, and if his head is right, and there's no reason to believe that his head won't be right, particularly under the leadership and guidance of Andy Reid, and how much better he makes that team. But boy, the Jets are just a dumpster fire, and I don't even know who would take that job, either as general manager or as a head coach.
Well, my boy Joe Douglas is up there right now, so you get caught up in the crossfire. Phil Savage is also a New York Jets employee as well. Dennis Koulatsos is here. He'll be here on Thursday, driving you home and get you ready for a weekend on the couch, right? World Series this week. We all have to go out and vote this week, right? So we have a lot of things going on here, but a weekend on the couch watching the NFL and seeing what's going on in the league, seeing who the good teams, you talk about the cream rising and where the good teams are. It's been an interesting year, I think, around the league. And every time I see Tom Brady wearing a Buccaneers jersey, I am reminded of how weird this year is.
Hey, it's a great league, and that game between the Buccaneers and the Packers serves as a reminder that defense still wins championships, and that gives me encouragement for the Ravens defense. I think they're better this year than last year, but their product has been very, very good. You look at the game like the Texans and the Titans, 42-36, whatever the final score was. A lot of compelling games, a lot of great storylines league wide.
Dennis, you're here on Thursdays, but I know you're out at Coons Florida Security Boulevard. Give me a whole lowdown on what's going on in the automotive industry right now, because you love to talk sports around and you're humble about what you do all day out at Security Boulevard. But I'm going to give you a little opportunity because I know it's the weather's changing, and that sort of messes with people. Feel like, hey, maybe I might need a different vehicle as we go into wintertime.
Well, this is such a great region, a lot of stability, a lot of government jobs, et cetera. So people have money, they're spending money. It's a great time to be in the car business. The demand is very, very high. The supply is kind of low. So it's been a very active market, a very busy market, just like the housing market. Anytime the rates are historically low, Nestor, gives everyone much more buying power. You're getting a lot more money, a lot more bang for your dollar. So that's what's really driving the market right now. So it's still 0% for 60 months. I mean, it's free money, whether you're buying a house or a car. It's a great time to get out there and maybe get a little bit more than you would be able to afford under normal circumstances.
Well, I appreciate you. We will see you on Thursday between 3 and 5, and again on Sunday. And even though it's a bye week this week, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not waving bye-bye. We're going to be doing lots of stuff on Baltimore Positive. I got JY from Sticks dropping by this week. We're going to do some music, some art, some politics, and some business matters here as we navigate COVID as well as bye week. And then next week, all the fun, right? Steelers week next week. We can all have fun with that, right?
Hey, and this weekend, Steelers Titans, break out the popcorn.
By the way, unfortunate injury for them with the Devin Bush thing, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's a massive blow. Talk about a guy we would have loved to have on our team, right? I mean, that guy's a hell of a football player.
He's a great football player. Let's hope that Patrick Queen develops to be the same type of football player. But that's the league. That's a 25th ACL tear for the season, Nestor. That's a historically high number. Something to really keep an eye on.
I'll be following maybe I'll get my boy Dr. Chow on. We'll talk about the pro football doc. We'll talk about these injuries and what's going on here. I have a little extra oxygen during bye week. Then we'll get after that. Hey, I appreciate you. We'll check in soon, okay?
Thanks so much. Be well.
Dennis Koulatsos joins us here from Coons Florida of Security Boulevard. I am Nestor. You can find me nasty at WNST.net. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming all over the world now at our new home at Baltimore Positive.